Hello everybody, it's Mrs. GCSE English here, and today I'm talking to you about allusion. So I'm going to define it, I'm going to show you some examples, and I'm going to tell you how you can analyze it in an English essay. So let's do this. An allusion is a reference, typically brief, to a person, place, thing, event, or other literary work with which the reader is presumably familiar. So it's basically like a writer drops into their text a reference to something from the real world. And what they're trying to do is get their reader to spot the connection between the reference and what's going on in the text. Let me show you an example of what I mean. One of the songs in the amazing Disney film Hercules is called Zero to Hero, and that song is so full of allusions because even though that film is set in ancient Greece, it is filled with modern day American allusions that really help the American audience better understand what is going on. I'm not talking about the entire song because I think Disney would probably sue me just for showing you the song, but hopefully they won't sue me for showing you one shot from it. And that is of these shoes, Air Herc. Now, these shoes were all about showing Hercules' popularity, and it did that by being an allusion to Air Jordans, which, for those of you who did not live through or are not very familiar with shoe trends in the 1990s, these shoes were everything. Everybody wanted Air Jordans or had Air Jordans. They were loved, beloved by everyone and everything. And of course, that was linked to the popularity of Michael Jordan himself. He was such a huge superstar that, everything he touched just sold like hotcakes. So by making this allusion, I, as someone who knows about Air Jordans and who knows about their popularity in the 1990s, I see that. I connect the dots. I'm like, oh, I see what you're doing there. You're referring to Air Jordans. I get it, Disney. I get you are trying to show me how popular Hercules is by comparing his popularity to Air Jordans and Michael Jordan. The challenge with allusion is the fact that I was able to understand that allusion because I knew about Air Jordan. What if I had never heard of Air Jordans? What if I was not aware of their popularity in the 1990s? I would look at that shoe and I'd be like, cool, he made a shoe called Air Herc. And I might think, okay, yeah, he's famous because he's now got a shoe named after him, but I wouldn't fully appreciate all of the meaning that the writer is trying to convey to me because I don't know Air Jordans. And that's the challenge of allusions. If you don't know the real world thing the writer is referring to, you're not going to be able to understand the allusion. And that is why research is so important. You'll often be able to just flat out look up the allusion and find out what the history is behind it, whether it's Greek or Roman or referring to some kind of goddess or historical event or the Bible. The Bible is a really commonly alluded to text in Western literature. And then once you know that history, you'll then be able to start connecting those dots. In that sense, allusions are really similar to metaphors in that they allow writers to really quickly and briefly convey a huge amount of information. To show you what I mean by that, we're now going to look at an actual allusion from a real text. And we're going to look at Shakespeare because Shakespeare loves using allusions. Across all of his plays, he uses so many Greek, Roman, and biblical allusions. Again, the challenge though for us as modern day readers, I don't know about you, but I have never read the Bible. And even if I had read the Bible, I certainly wouldn't know it necessarily well enough to be able to spot all those different connections. And I do not know my Greek and Roman gods and all that kind of stuff very well. So that means I have to go and research what the history is and the information behind it so that I can then analyze them. And one that I did that with is this quote from Macbeth. Now, for those of you who know nothing about Macbeth, very, very quick explanation. Macbeth is about to go and kill a king, and before he does that, he calls himself Tarquin. He describes himself moving towards the murder as Tarquin's ravishing strides. That is a Roman allusion. Tarquin was one of the last kings of Rome. Now get this, Tarquin raped a woman, okay, Lucretia, something like that. And he was a tyrant and a terrible king and he was really like bloody and violent. And that's part of why, I'm oversimplifying Roman history here, but that is part of why he was the last king of Rome before they became a republic. So of course, with that history in mind and knowing all of that about Tarquin, we can ask ourselves, what is Shakespeare saying about Macbeth? Well, what is Macbeth himself saying about Macbeth? Because of course he is the one calling himself Tarquin. So he's showing an awareness that he knows what he's doing is immoral and wrong, like Tarquin was. Tarquin was really immoral and wrong. He raped people. He was really bloodthirsty. He was a tyrant. It's also showing that Macbeth is aware of the kind of king he may one day be. He will be a bloody, violent tyrant one day. And Macbeth is showing he knows that. So you can see just in that like single word there, I haven't even talked about ravaging strides, but in that one word of Tarquin, because I know the history of Tarquin, I now know so much more about Macbeth. So when you come to analyze allusions in an essay, essentially what you're doing is explaining what the historical background is, or what it says in the Bible, or who the god is that's being referred to, whatever it is for the allusion. And then you're explaining, just like with a metaphor, why refer to that event? What does that event, or that person, or that god, or that bit of the Bible, what does that have in common with what's going on in the text right now? How can you see those like similarities between them? And then that will give you so many amazing extra analytical layers for your essay.